Hello and good evening. It's Tuesday the 7th of November. Good job it's right at the top of my screen so that I know the date. But welcome everybody. It's time for Bag of the Month for November. This month's bag is called the Kirsten bag because when I looked through the names of my bags, I'd missed a few out. I'd gone on to the Olga, Octavia, had I done a P? I was about to do a P, and then, as in a name beginning with P, and then I thought, do you know what, I don't think that I have made a one beginning with, going back to K, hence Kirsten. I just choose pretty names which I like, and that's what we go along with. So I know we have a Kirsten in the group, so named after you, Kirsten, just for you. So I think there are people watching, but again, I'm not going to see any comments for a while, but never mind, because I shall crack on when we've got a few more people here, because I know I've only just turned on and come live, but I thought it's quite nice to be able to just ramble on and do what I need to do, because usually the bag demo probably takes up to about 8 o'clock. So hopefully you'll all be able to stay with me that long. Or if you just want to switch off, absolutely fine, because the video will be in the group ad infinitum, but as usual, I don't mention any measurements, or the odd little bit now and again, but I don't measure, I don't have any full measurements for everybody, because you will have them in your PDF. So that went into the files on yesterday morning, so that hopefully you've had it a little bit longer than usual. So I had it made yesterday. I popped it on the website, so I changed things a little bit. It is exclusive to yourselves in the group, but I thought, well, we'll put it onto the website as well, so that other people can buy. But there won't, unfortunately, be a video for them, but hopefully the instructions will be enough for them to be able to complete the bag. It is, as usual, quite straightforward, but today with this, it's a case of making little components along the way, and then it just all goes together. But I do like a zipped pocket, and especially across the middle, so that it gives it 3 compartments. So before I go any further into that, I'll just say that on Thursday, yeah, there's no comments coming up, and I can see Lindsay's there and a lot more of you as well. On Thursday, I'm afraid I shall put something on the website tomorrow, once I've got a little sample pack done, but I've decided, I've been deliberating all this time about doing a Christmas Advent box. And I thought, no, I won't do it. Too much work. No, I won't do it. What can I do? Because as usual, I like to keep the price as low as I possibly can. But having seen there are other Advent boxes out there, and they're all quite a price. And as I'm going to be giving you free postage with it, thank you, Lindsay, I thought you would be. It will be a one-off price, no postage, so what you see is what you pay. And there's going to be 24 components within there, each labelled up with the 1 to 24, and the majority will be fabric. And as you know, I only use quality fabrics, which also come with a little bit of a price, but they're well worth it. So it will be a box with a few haberdashery items, but the majority will be Moda fabric and a little bit of Macawa as well. So it all needs packing, wrapping, etc. But I'm going to do one for tomorrow to get on the website for you to reserve your box, should you like one. Now it will be a pre-order, because I'm giving myself just under 2 weeks to get them done, and there will be a limited quantity as well. I'm going to do 50 maximum, so that I've got everything that I need together. So I shall be popping that on the website just as a pre-order, and then there will be an email account to make your payment to. So it won't be paid on the website, but you can reserve it on the website. So that's that little thing. And then on Friday, Lindsay's already put up a post to say what's coming this week. On Friday, we're doing herky jerky. Wait and see what that is. I only came across it yesterday and I thought, yeah, simple. It's just a name that somebody else has given to this particular technique. But I think those of you who find a particular technique not so easy, you'll find the technique in the herky jerky fashion very, very appealing, and it looks really good too. So I won't, that's just a little teaser, and I'm not going to say any more at the moment. So let's get on to the bag. So here is our Kirsten bag, and the Kirsten bag has a magnetic clasp, and then it also has a zipped pocket which gives you 3 compartments, one within the zip pocket itself that goes the whole way across. Let's see, I'm doing it up, so let's undo it. So you've got a full pocket, an internal pocket there, completely closed at the bottom, and then you've got 2 components or 2 compartments each side, and the pocket at the bottom, it is full, so there's things that nothing will fall out, but it can go from one side to the other. And then it has little tabs at the side, swivel clasps, and the usual strap with a slider. Now, I've done, if you don't know if you can see, the bag handle, the strap, is a little bit narrower than usual. So the bag clasps I've used here are 3/4 of an inch or 20 mil, just a little bit narrower, but adds to it. The magnetic clasp on the front and the flap, and the neat finish around the back. It just works because it works. So let us begin. No, I won't hang it there. I'll pop it here so that we can see it. Just thought I need to do a little bit of ironing. I've got the iron there, but it's not plugged in. So what we will need, I have my bits prepared here to a degree. So we have a piece. This is another colourway that I'm going to do. I'm going to call it vintage. So we've got the one colourway which is a deep purple with a lovely Jacobean floral and leafy style. This one is called vintage. It's a motor fabric, and we're going to make, this is for the bag flap. So what you'll need is the outer piece for the flap. I'm using just fusible fleece. You could in fact use, if you wanted to be a little bit sturdier or more rigid, well, it's not rigid, it's soft, but stands alone easily, you could use Styleville, the foam stabiliser. You could use H640 if you wanted to, but I've used the fusible fleece that I have because I use it for so much. And then we've got a piece of lining fabric. In this one I've just chosen a creamy calico, but the other one has got actual fabric, a Macawa fabric within there. So one outer piece, one fusible fleece, and one lining piece. So that's for your flap. Then we have one piece of lining, one piece of outer fabric, and one piece of fusible fleece. And this is for your internal pocket, which we are going to use a zip with. You need an 8-inch zip, but I'm choosing a longer one. Somebody's ordering a Christmas box already, and I love you. Thank you. I can see the message coming at the top. So I've got the zip that's a little bit longer because I'm going to trim it back, but that's no problem at all. But at least an 8-inch zip. So that's what we need for the pocket. And then for the main outer bag, we need 2 pieces of outer fabric, which are that size. And we need 2 pieces of fusible fleece, that same size, and 2 pieces of lining fabric, the same size. I've already started to prepare part of what we need to do, but all you need to know is that there are 2 pieces of fabric outer, 2 pieces of fusible fleece and 2 pieces of lining there. You will also need a 3-inch width of fabric for your strap. That's how it's going to make it a little bit narrower. So 3 inches. I'll go through that. I've already done it because it takes a little while, and it's optional. I have actually put a very thin strip of fusible fleece within the handle, and it just gives it a little bit more body. Quite nice. And then two little pieces, which I've already sewn this together, but 2 little pieces like this, which I've also folded, for your D-rings. And then you'll need 2 D-rings, 2 swivel clasps, 1 slider and 1 magnetic clasp to complete the bag. So there is 1 kit on the website at the moment. There will be a second one, vintage, in case you like this. Don't have to buy at all, because I know you have got an enormous stash, all of you, and you can easily, it doesn't take too much fabric, a little bit more than some, but it doesn't take too much fabric to make it. So let us begin. Let me pop that down there. So we'll start first of all with the flap. And the flap, let's just pop those over there. The flap, we're going to use a magnetic clasp as well. So let's dip you down to the machine. What we are going to do. So first of all though, we're going to pop our flap, our outer fabric, right sides together with our lining fabric. Now, if like this one, or this one has got a little direction, make sure you know which is going to be the top and the bottom of the fabric. This is going to be the bottom, and I'm going to curve my flap. You could leave it square if you wanted to. You could cut an angle off of each corner just to make it that sort of shape, like so. You could just do a minimal curve at each corner, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop this down. This wouldn't actually, it's better this way up, but I'm going to curve my corners at this bottom edge here. So I'm going to pop it right sides together, and I'm going to take it down here. Don't need that ruler for a moment. So remembering, so I'm going to turn it that way, remembering this part is the bottom, I'm going to line those edges up, the lining and the outer fabric. And I happen to have, I've had these for years and years. I have some simple circles. So what I'm going to do is pop that centrally. Or I could, as long as I pop it centrally, I'm just watching or having a look to see that is. And I'm going to just curve. Actually, let's make this one a little bit different. I'll use this different one here. And, oh, that's quite clever that it's almost exactly the size or the width of my, there we go. So this one's going to be a slightly different flap. It's taking it down a little bit more curvy. Or shall I do it less curvy? Let's see. Yeah, let's do it less curvy. Gosh, I can't make my mind up, can I? Let's just do this like this. So I'm just using that. I'm using my, the lines on here. You could use a plate. It's going to be fairly similar actually. And I am going to cut through both sides, both layers. So I just cut that bit off. You could draw if you wanted to instead. And then I'm just going to do this side here. And what I would do if I was doing this, I'm going to take this bit here and just pop that on there. And just to see, you can see now that's exactly the same. So I'll take that off, and I know that I've got my template in exactly the same position. So I don't know if I'm cutting into your vision there, but now I've cut that and I've got myself a nice curved shape. But a plate or a roll of ribbon, roll of sellotape, anything to make a little curve along there. So having got that together, I am going to, because I want it to stay exactly in place, I'm just going to put the odd pin in there. I never like to put a pin into my fabrics when I'm using a rotary cutter. I have seen it done, but I just think there is the occasion where your rotary cutter is going to hit the pin. It's well out of the way here, but they can get in the way unless you've got a flat head pin. So you can easily put a ruler over the top of that without affecting your sewing. So let's come in here now. So all I'm going to do is, well, the first thing I'm going to do is switch my iron on, because I am going to use the iron, and I'm going to bring it down a little bit. That's it. Now I might swivel it around so you can hear all this going on in the background. Nearly tipped the iron board over there. Let's bring that there, and then I can bring that in as and when we need it. So I'm just going to stitch around the curve. Now I'm using a navy thread because you'll be able to see it a little bit more than if it was a coordinating, but I would use a coordinating thread under normal circumstances. So I'm using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm just going smoothly. I'm not going that fast, but I'm just going smoothly around the curve without stopping. So the longer your curve, the easier it is, and just reversing there, the easier it is to be able to get a nice consistent curve on your stitching. So the other thing I'm going to do, usually I trim this away, but all around this curved edge, I'm going to just clip into it instead of cutting to about 1/8 of an inch. You can use pinking shears if you like. You can, so I'm just doing little snips all the way. That little bit in the middle isn't particularly curved, but for the distance that it is, you may as well. Sometimes what you can do, or I've seen people do, is cut like a little triangle out. So you've got that little gap there, but a snip is enough to give you a nice curve. And the reason I put the iron on is because before I top stitch this, I am going to press it, because it always gives a much better finish. So let's turn that to the right side, and hopefully, and you'll be the same, I'm just running my fingers around that edge just to push that all out and to give us a really nice finish, a nice smooth curve. Put your what am I going to call it, a bone folder, I was going to say, your creaser tool in there, just to push that right out nicely to the edges. So let's just bring in the ironing board, and then you'll be able to see. So I'm going to pop that on there, and I'll press from the top. My best press is right over the way, so I have used it on my fabric before, when I pressed the fabric before I started, so I've got that lovely smell. So what you want to make sure as well is that your lining fabric goes all the way up to the edge there. You don't want it to be down, pulled down a little bit, and that means all your seams there, all these seams are pressed right to the edge, and you've got a nice curve. So now we are going to just top stitch. So let's have a look here. I usually do a little bit wider top stitch, or a little bit longer, so I'll use a three setting for my top stitch, and I'm not going quite 1/4 of an inch in, but I'm just looking at my foot being halfway across. So I'm not using the edge of my foot or the inside edge, but I'm watching it that it's halfway across the width of my foot, and hopefully we'll have a nice even top stitching all the way around the edge. Now I'm not using a 40 weight, I'm just using the standard 50 weight on this particular project, because it's on my machine. So I stitched that round. You can still see that around there, but that I feel really finishes it off. Now we need to pop the magnetic clasp in now. So all I do to do that is fold my flap in half because I want to find the middle. Pop that in half, fold it in half, and then, oops, can't see there, can you? And then, so this is the folded bit in half. I'm going to put a pin about 3/4 to an inch up there. I know it was that bit there. You can always measure if you'd like to. So that is halfway across the bag flap. And what I'll do, so I can take my pin out, I'm going to just put a little dot where that pin went in. Okay. So now with my magnetic clasp, which is here. Some of you may not have used a magnetic clasp before. Some of you may have. So when you have a magnetic clasp, what you have is you have an innie and you have an outie. So this bit has got a protruding bit and that's got a little bit of a recess. And then you'll have two washers as well. So on the flap, I always like to put the outie, the bit which protrudes, so that fits into that recess on the main bag part. So we don't need one washer and that to start off with, but we do need this one washer here. And all we're going to do is put that circle in the washer. Let's just bring that in a little bit. So the circle of the washer goes over the dot, and then if we put a little line in those two holes, in those vertical holes, and so you've got those two little marks there. Then we're going to pull the fabric apart. So we're only going to go through the lining fabric. So just lift that up and pop your seam ripper into where you've made those marks, and just the tiniest, be very careful. I'm holding back on it as well. It looks as though I'm just going to rip, but I'm pushing that down to my finger underneath so that I only do the smallest. You could nick it with scissors if you wanted to, but it's quite easy. Oh, it's quite easy to use the seam ripper to just get those tiny little incisions. Right, so now the prongs on my magnetic clasp are going to go through those incisions. So just pop them over and push. I probably haven't made them big enough, but just push those through. Let's just have a look at the back here. So, whoops. Let's turn that around that way a bit. There we are. So, there's a little nick. I didn't go, oh, let's just push that down. See, there's nothing like you can always make your hole a little bit bigger, but you can't make it smaller. So much better to then, so that pushes through like so. That's it, just push it down with your nails so that the prongs come through. Okay, so, oh, goodness gracious me, got some little fibres there. That's it. Right, so that's gone through now. So nicely through. Now, because it is purely a layer of lining, what I also like to do, I've just got a little bit here of scrap fusible fleece. You could put a bit of fabric, you could put a bit of thermolam, whatever you like. And with that, I just fold it in half and I put two little nicks in there for the prongs to go through that as well. So then, there are the prongs. Pop that over the top. Push that down there. And it just gives it a little bit more robustness. No, it just makes it a little bit more sturdy. Then we put our washer on the top and just push that down. I don't know why that's not going down, but just take that off a little bit. Perhaps that hole isn't quite big enough. So what you can do is pop it onto the bed of your machine, because what we're going to do is splay these prongs. Oh, ow. Okay. Right, let's just take that washer off. I think the little holes in that particular washer have not been made long enough Let's get another one here. There we are. See, that fits. That fits quite nicely, or it doesn't. Oh, for goodness sake. Goodness sake. All right, let's just pop that over. Never caused me a problem before in my life. What is going on? Right, so just to test it a little bit. No. Right, let me just get another washer because something is not quite right there. Right. 1, 2. Let's get 2 new washers. Those are perhaps for a smaller magnetic clasp. Here we are, a bigger magnetic clasp. So that will fit. Let's pop the little bit of wadding on there as well. And there's no comments yet. There we are, that fits really nicely. And then we can easily just splay those legs outwards. Then we can pop that back together again. There is our magnetic clasp all nicely in place. And I'm just going to take this, not that you can see, to the the iron. And I've just smoothed that down again so that that is nice and all no creases, no wrinkles. So there is the bag flap. So you can, if you like, stitch across here just to hold it together. I haven't put that in the instructions, and quite often I'll do that. So just 1/8 of an inch or just next to it, just to hold the layer of the lining. There we are. So I just got a narrow line just to hold that together. Just take that bit. My thread's obviously catching today, and that might show. So let's just trim those little bits away so that we don't have, there we go, so that we don't have a not so neat finish inside the bag. So I'll trim those threads off, trim that off as well, and that little bit of thread there, get that out of the way. Okay, so we've got a nice neat flap ready to go on our bag when we go to do that. So we'll just set that aside for the moment. So the next thing I'm going to do is the bag straps. Now these are, where are we? What we do with these, when we have a piece of fabric, usually 4 inches wide, but this is 3 inches wide. And what we would do with that, we would, so let's say, I'll show you on this so you can see that side. So what we would do normally is fold it in half. So I'm using this as, now let's do this as the right side. Right, so there is my right side. You can see it shiny a bit. Fold it in half and press it. Open it out. Fold the raw edge to that middle crease and press. Fold the other edge to the center and press. And then fold it all over and press again. So we've got a nice neat band for our strap. And then I would always sew up the side that is open, the folded side there, first of all, and then stitch down the other side. Now, if you want to add wadding in, what I then also do, where's my little bit of wadding gone? Never mind. No, here's a little bit here. If you want to add wadding into here, I would open it up like that, take my wadding, open one side, pop my wadding inside, a whole strip, fold it back again, and this is fusible, so I then press across there as well, and then you've got wadding in your handle before you stitch down the open side first and the other side. So you'll do the same for your whole strip like this. So I've missed a little bit there. Oh dear, let's just do that little bit again from this side. It just looks as though that's just, so it is really important to all the way there. It's really important to line up your edges as you press. Otherwise, like I had there, it misses the back of the handle. And what you want it to be done, see, they're all matched up nicely there, but I've obviously not matched it properly just there. So I've now corrected that. And what we're going to do is add our bag hardware. So we need a slider and we need 2 swivel clasps. So the first thing we work with, I'm just going to trim off that end there because that is the selvage there. So we work with our slider first of all, and what we do is thread it through that centre bar on the slider, so over the top of it and to the other side, and then just flip that over, and then we're going to fold that, take that out of the way there, fold that onto the strip, just tuck a little bit under to, so I have to pull it out just a little bit more, tuck the raw edge under, so you could zigzag it if you wanted to, but if you tuck it under and leave enough room to be able to get your foot next to this, because you're going to put this down now, the slider is on there, we're going to put it down under the machine and just stitch across this very short seam here. So where the, there we go, and you can, if you've got enough room, you can do a box, or like I like to do, just stitch backwards and forwards a couple of times in a line. So then we can just trim that little bit off there and the back there, and it's neatly attached. So neat on the back, neat on the front. So once we have our slider on, that's the very first thing, we're then, excuse me, we're then going to pop a slider on. So go to the other end and pop a slider onto your, it doesn't matter, onto the strip. Doesn't matter if it's the wrong way round, because we can always move that. So having attached that on, so that's hanging in the middle there, we go back to where the slider is and we thread the end through the slider over the bit, the bar in the middle, and through to the other side. So can you see that? And that creates our slider there. So we can have a look at this end now to see if, oh, and I just happened to put my swivel clasp on correctly. If it had been the other way, I could have just twisted it around, but that's on. So there's the slider, there's the swivel, and here is the other end, which is lonely. It's got nothing on there. So now we take the other swivel clasp, feed it through. Now this does have to be on the right way. So look to see where your slider is, what side it is, and then make sure that your swivel clasp goes on the correct way, because we're going to fold that, we're going to insert it through the loop, and then we're going to turn that raw edge back again, tuck it under, and we will stitch across. Nothing's handling very well for me tonight, so just tuck that under, pin it, clip it, but we're going to stitch across here like we did at the other end, or as we did on the slider. So again, straight across, just not quite to the edge, and then I like to stop in the middle of the seam there, because then you don't have these little ends right on the end. That's just right in the middle. There we are. So then another nice, neat thing for our strap. So that is our strap ready for when we finish it. So we have our swivels at that end, and we have our slider in the middle. So we're going to set that aside over there with our flap. And the next thing we are going to do is we're going to do our pocket. So we need our zip, but we need our pocket pieces. So again, we just needed one piece of outer, one piece of fusible fleece, and some nice lining fabric, which just needs a little press, which I've done there. And then we are going to, now the pocket piece, I'm just going to dip you down here because we need to trim this pocket piece. So that's down on there, don't want it down on there. We want it down on our cutting mat here. So what we're going to do, we're going to fold this along, so it's longer, oops, here we are, let's pop them both together for a minute. It's longer on one side than the other, and it's the short side, the shorter side, we can fold it like this. It needs to be folded so that this distance here is 6, this was 12, so when it's folded you want the side edge to be 6 inches. So this is the side that the zip is going to put along this edge. Now that looks a lot longer than 8 inches. So I am at this point, not that I usually do, but I'm putting a couple of pins in here because I want to hold these edges together. So, and I'm right near the edge because we're going to do a little bit of cutting here. So that is folded there. And then we're going to do exactly the same with the other piece. That's better. Okay, so the other piece, we're going to fold this up as well. I won't need to particularly, because this is lining fabric, I won't need to pin that, but I am going to line them up so that they are identical there. So I'll take the pin out. Oh, fireworks still. Goodness gracious. Okay, and we'll put the pin there as well. So we're going to be working on these two edges. And with those two edges, there we are, is that a little bit better? You can see the whole of it here. No. I'll perhaps move this machine over just a little bit. That's better, so that you can see that now. There. It's not very. There we are. You can see it now. There we are. So I've got my folds down here. So if your fabric's directional, just make sure you are going to have one side that is upside down, but I'm sure you won't see it. It's the inside pocket. So it's not going to harm. You'll see fabric both sides, nice fabric both sides of it, but inside, or rather that will be one side's upside down. So non-directional would be easier, but don't worry if you haven't got non-directional fabric. So the first thing we're going to do, having lined these edges up here, we're going to cut, well, we're going to make a mark first of all. We're going to make a mark which is 1 inch from the edge. So we can put a little dot at 1 inch there. So this is at the raw edge, and a little mark there. So you can see that just by the pins, one there and one there. And we're going to do a diagonal cut. We're going to go from that line down to the very corner. We're going to trim that off. So let's just see. That's it, move that over. And I've got that lined up there. And I'm going through both layers. And I've cut that little bit off, that little wedge. And then I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm just going to swivel it around because I've got the pins in. They're held together. And again, just line that up from that 1 inch mark down to that bottom corner and cut. So I've trimmed that bit away as well. So my shapes now, just throw that on the floor. You can take the pins out, but what we have now are two pieces which are a funny shape. They go out and in, and the same with this piece, the lining piece. So there we are. They go out and in, and they will be exactly the same size because we cut them together. So now we are going to insert the zip along this short edge here. So let's go back to the machine. There we are. So you can pop your zipper foot on if you'd like to at this point, or not, as the case may be. And we're going to take our zip and place it zipper pull down. And I'm going to leave a little bit of excess at both sides. So let's just put a pin at this side here, lining that tape up with the edge here. Now you know me, I do like to take my pins out once they've served their purpose by being there, just to hold them in before I put the lining fabric on. So now I'm going to take my lining fabric. Now if it had a right side, I'd be putting it right sides together. So let's just lay that on top, and what you'll find is that it will line up because it's exactly the same size, because we cut it together with the outer fabric. So that's all lined up nicely there. Let's pop a pin back in there, and then, as I say, if you want to change to your zipper foot, by all means do. If not, you could move your needle position to 5.5, or put your no, not 5.5. You could move your needle position right to the left, to the far left, so it goes to 0, and you could then use your standard foot. So my foot happens to be 1/4 inch wide, and it fits perfectly for doing my zips. So I'm just going to start and sew along here, and because my zipper pull is out of the way, it just means that I can stitch the whole way across without opening up that the zip to get past the zipper pull. Okay, so we've gone right past the end. I've got zip at both sides, but we are going to trim that later. So I'm just going to pull that back. I can roll my thumbnail along there, and then I'm going to push that lining fabric underneath, because we now need to top stitch. So I do like to pull my fabric back into line, and down at the bottom here, just pull that right down, because I don't want any excess lining to be caught up in my top stitching. So we can pull it this way, we can pull it the other way, but I'm just pulling that, I'm pulling that down so that it's pulled away from the zip. And you can press it at this point as well if you would like to, but rather than bring the iron in, I'm just going to fire away, and I'm going to top stitch along this edge. And I'll just pull that away just to make sure that it's being pulled away nicely, and just top stitch all along there. Okay, so there I've got my top stitching all in there, makes it nice and neat. And then I'm going to pull this end, the opposite end, just the outer fabric, up to the opposite side. So I've pulled it up to here, and again I'm just lining up this edge here. Where are we? Let's pop it under there just a minute. Right, so I've pulled my outer fabric up, lining it up with the opposite edge of the tape. So we've stitched it to that side. We now want to line it up with this side. That's where it's sometimes with a zip it's confusing. You think, where does the next bit go? So we can put a pin in there just to hold that together, and along this side as well, just to make sure that lines up too. So I've got it under the presser foot at the minute. So let's just put a pin here, and you'll find that all this edge lines up as well. But we've still got our lining fabric here. So what we're going to do with that is we are going to pull that up to the opposite side. So we're making a zip sandwich. The zip is in between the outer fabric and the lining fabric. So again, line this up with the zipper tape, and the other side, the outer fabric, replace that pin, and I know now that is absolutely in place there. So let's just line that, just make sure there's pins there to hold it, because it does tend to pull away a little bit, and my needle's just about to unthread, and now it's not. So we can just stitch along there, and I say, as you know, I like to not have a pin in there, so that I can line my fabric up and then just hold my finger, press down a little bit, just to hold all those layers together. And I've got this pin at this end, so I'll just take that out, pull that up. Just make sure that tape is lining up and trim. So we have got that all together there. We've got 2 tubes of fabric. So it's easier, we're going to turn it to the right side. It's easier to undo your zip, and it just makes it easier to just turn it to the right side. So turn that through. But we want the lining to be on the inside. So having turned it through, we can first of all just zip that back up so that we can pull the lining fabric down. So we do need to still top stitch along this opposite edge, but you can then pull your lining fabric into position in here, inside, so that it lies nice and flat. So I've got my hand in there, I'm just pushing that down, and this side also, just so there's no, because that was tucked up a little bit, but just put your finger in there, and then you can see the lining fabric all lines up nicely with the edges. So having done that, we're going to undo the zip again, because we do need to top stitch along this opposite side. So again, because I've got the excess zip, it makes it easy. So I'm going to either press, or I'm just pulling that lining fabric down on the inside and take that other little bit out of the way, just so that I can pop this under. Now in actual fact, what I'm going to do, you can do it either way, one side or the other, but I'm going to start from the other edge here. So because I start from this other side, which is more open than that side, it means that I can make sure the fabric is pulled down. So again, let's just pop that under the needle and just pull that fabric out, or on the inside, just pull it down and top stitch all along this edge of the zip. And when we get to this end, there's still a little bit of fabric there with zip on, which makes it quite nice and straightforward to be able to stitch that down. So just pull that out a little bit, make sure the lining is out of the way, and carry on stitching to the end there. Okay. So now we have all our lining fabric, which we're going to just push back inside again. Just line it up with the outer edges there and smooth that down, and then we can zip that up. Then if we just flatten that, just making sure my lining is nice and flat, I would actually just press this, because we're just going to trim it. I'm just pulling my fingers in there, and I'm just going to press it once again. We've got our zip coil right on the top edge. Excuse me, got a bit of a tickle in my throat. Right, so let's just take this to the ironing board here. So once you've got this all stitched, it's not completely stitched, we're going to do a couple more lines of stitching. Just give that a nice thorough press. There we are. So that's nice and flat now. So we'll take that to there. And be careful at this end where your zip tab is, because what we're going to do is just trim this end off. So this end is fine, because we are going to stitch up here. So just trim that off. Probably should have stitched first, because we're going to stitch up this edge and this other edge. So I've trimmed that off, and then I'm just going to stitch about, there we are, about 1/8 of an inch in, just to hold all those layers together. Okay, and just reverse at the top there. And then on the other side, so that is nice and neat, I'm just going to trim those little frayed bits off. They are going to all be hidden shortly, so you don't need to worry about it, because those little excess bits, there we are. Oops. So we've got those off. And on this side, just be careful, because we need to undo the zip to make sure the zip is on or within the pocket. So I'm going to start from the bottom, and I can see that's just come over a little bit. So we're going to trim that away. So 1/8 of an inch in, and sit all the way up here onto that zip tape. And then I'm going to trim the zip tape away and that little bit of excess which has moved. Okay, so that we've got a nice narrow seam, but we have our pocket now, and that's all ready to work with. So we are getting on very, very well. So there's my up the right way, and there's my on, but it's diagonal seamed. Can you see? It's narrower there and comes out. So there is my pocket. Now let's go to the main bag outers. So what we'll do with the main bag outers, we will fuse our fusible fleece onto the back of our outer fabric, both pieces, and then 2 lining pieces. Now here, if your fabric's directional, you can put it in the right direction before we do anything, but just make sure that we work on the bottom edge of both pieces. So that's the right way up. And I'm just going to line these up perfectly, because we need to make our bag base, or we need to give our bag dimension at the base. So I've got my 2 layers together, and then I've got my 2 layers of lining fabric together. Just line those up so they fit with the other. So stack them, I think is what I put on the instructions. And then I've measured and drawn a 1 inch, so I'm just going to use a pin again. Just hold this together. Oh, I've got a binding clip here. Let's just hold that in the middle to hold it. So I've drawn myself a 1 inch square here and line those up, and then I'm just going to cut the 1 inch square out. It is much easier to draw and then use scissors than it is to use a rotary cutter, because you may very well, so you can see that's cut out, and we'll do it here as well, to overcut. That's it, up to there. And if you overcut, you'll end up with a hole in your lining. So both bottom corners, we've cut out a 1 inch square. Now, what we're going to do, I nearly thought, what do we do next? Right, so we'll take one of our outers. Here we are, here's our outer. You can see which one you want to be on the front. Let's see, I might have that as my front piece, so I'll put that aside. So working with my back piece, I'm going to take my flap, my bag flap, with the magnetic clasp, one piece already fixed. So what we can do, we need this to be placed right side down on the top edge in the centre. Now the easy way to do it is to just fold your flap in half, and no, I won't cut it. What I'll do is I'm going to put a pin in that fold. So there is the pin for halfway, and then similarly with your outer piece, fold it in half. You could clip this if you wanted to, or pop a pin in there. I know that was the, there we go, there is my pin, and then we can line up one pin with the other. So that lines up there beautifully, and I'll now take that pin out and pop it at the other side, pinning the 2 pieces together. Oh, we've got, you never use your zip foot these days. No, me neither. Very rarely do I do that. Okay, so the instructions will show you, so that you could re-measure to make sure that is exactly central if you want to, but it will be because we did our markings. Now what you are, in the instructions you will see there are 2 more pin marks. So I put another couple of pins in the middle where we are not going to stitch. More often than not, we stitch, let's do it a little bit further away, the whole way across the flap, don't we? But on this occasion, we're not going to. We're going to leave a gap. So I did this in 2 sections. You could put your lining fabric on the top now, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch across this one first, and then we'll add our lining fabric. So we're going to use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and we can go right from the other side. And let's see, I'm just on about 2.5. So I'm going to start stitching there. So we are stitching at, we're not just using a narrow seam allowance to attach the flap, we're using our necessary 1/4 of an inch seam. So when we get across here to that pin, I'm going to reverse, and then I'm going to cut. Then I'm going to skip to the next pin, and still at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and just reverse before we start, and I'm going to stitch the whole way across here. Now what this is going to do, it means that we're not going to have a gap in the bottom edge of our lining. We usually do the turning through on the bottom of the lining. We're going to have a turn through just here, which is going to be not noticeable. So having stitched our flap on, we now want to have our lining piece, one lining piece, right sides together. Just line that up there, and what we'll do, that sits on there really nicely. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a look, 1/4 of an inch again, and I'm just going to look, and I might put a mark as to where, there we are. So that is where we stopped stitching. So again, I'm going to do exactly the same thing and just reverse there, and then I can look quite easily where we started stitching, which is there. Just cut that, move it across to where we started stitching again, and stitch just a little reverse and carry on the whole way across like that. So now we have nice and neat, but we've got that line there. Now it is a good idea, and I'm going to do that now, it's a good idea to press this now, because when we come to finishing it, the very last bit of top stitching, it just goes together so beautifully if you do some pressing now. So you can see, I know we've got a gap there, haven't we? We've got that hole, but let's press across here because it presses this seam beautifully. So we'll press that there, okay, and the fleece is going that way, but we've just pressed that across, and we'll do the same when it comes to, no, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to fold this back just for the moment, so that the lining fabric's underneath, because this is going to be the top of the bag, like that. And then also, so we've got our gap just there, you can see me open that, but you can see how nicely that just sits across there, and I'm just going to press that like so. And now, even though it's opened, that is opened there, when we come to top stitch, that is going to look so, so neat. Okay, so let's go back to, because we've got all the preparation done, it really doesn't take long from this part. So this is going to be the flap, which comes over the front of the bag. We now need to make the back of the bag, or the front of the bag in fact. So again, right sides together with our lining fabric, and just line those up and stitch across. That should be, well, there's a little bit of excess wadding there. So just make sure, I could tell there because my the bottom edge here didn't line up, but it does now. So again, you can reverse at the beginning if you'd like to. Straight across. Don't need that little bit of fabric there. Straight across. So there we have our, we'll open that out now. I won't actually press that, I'll just run my nail along there. So we have our back piece and we have our front piece. So here's our front piece, the back with the flap on. So we'll just open that back out again, because what we're going to do now is we're going to put right sides together. So I've got outer fabric over outer and lining over lining. And I'm just going to come up a little bit further so you can see all of it. Outer on outer, lining on lining. So we do need to match up our top edge of our bag. So I'm going to put a pin there. Just make sure that lines up beautifully. And the other side as well. So just make sure that both the seams are going upwards together, but that doesn't matter. And just put a thing in there. We are then, oh, that's what I haven't made. We're going to need our tabs. So I've made that, oh, there we are. I've made one tab and stitched it. So we did this just like we made our handle, and we will thread it through the D-ring so that lines that edge up. Yours will be a little bit longer, and then I'm just going to stitch across here, right next to it, and reverse. So I've got two. Oops, can't see any here. That's it. There's a bit of thread there. Right, let's just trim that away. Okay, so I've got two tabs now. Now the tabs will go about half an inch down, so in between your two outers. Let's move that across. So here's my two outers. I'm just going to pop that down here, about half an inch from the top, and just line the raw edges, and we'll put a pin in there most definitely to hold that together. Okay, so that one is in that side, and then we'll just put one in the other side also. So coming around here, we can lift that up and pop. So you're popping the D-ring inside, and the raw edge is lined up with the edge of your bag outer. So about half an inch down, or the top of it is half an inch down from the top. So again, pop yourself a pin in there to hold that together. Then all these other edges all line up as well. Now, before we pin the next side together, we need to put our purse into here. So we can pop what we're doing is we're going to lay this inside the two pieces of lining. We want our zip to be facing up, and we want the widest edge to be at the bottom. So if we just lift one layer of lining, and we can then lay this edge along the edge of the lining. So it needs to be a quarter of an inch from the very bottom here. So there's my cutout corner. Can you see that that leaves about a quarter of an inch, if not a little bit more? And then this will go towards the top. If you've got half an inch there, it's good. If you haven't, don't worry. You don't want it to be above where the seams come, where the top and the bottom come together. But let's just pop a pin in there just to hold that, and put a pin in the top here, just because what we're doing, we're putting a diagonal line onto this straight seam. So, and you can see how it sits strangely there, doesn't it? So what we're going to do first of all, we're going to sew this part first. So just to make sure that this is lining up. Where are we? Okay, so let's just pop that down, and we'll start right at the bottom, because that little bit, we can fold that down if you like. In fact, I will. Let's just get a binding clip and fold that bit out of the way, and we're going to pop the lining back on top of our pocket, line up that bottom edge there, and we'll start stitching. So just start stitching, reverse a little bit there, and let's just get our lining lined up with that edge of the pocket, and carry on straight up. Just keep watching that and we're coming towards that top edge, and then now is the easy part. We're coming down the outer. There is our tab. Our cutout corners match, and when we get to that cutout corner, you can reverse there if you'd like to, or not, as the case may be, and then we can go across. So make sure that lines up. Just push that a little bit there, and start stitching along here. So we've got our bottom edge all nicely aligned, and up to that cutout corner. And when we get to that cutout corner, we can just reverse a little, and then we can swivel round to start coming up this outside outer edge. So, because we need to stop, so we're going to come up to, there is my D-ring tab. Now, before we go any further, we've got the other side of our pocket, of our zipped pocket. So what we need to do, what we need to do is line this up with this edge here. So I'm just going to pivot the machine so that I can get to this easily. And we are going to, and this is where you will need pins here, because you need to pull this over. So again, it's 1/4 inch above the bottom, and wherever it goes to on that side. So let's put a pin in here, because it will pull your lining fabric awkwardly. Can you see how this is sticking up here? It's because we're putting the diagonal seam onto a straight edge. So let's put that one in, and then this top edge here, pull that right over, and we'll put a pin in there to hold that together. I'm just going to take that zipper pull well out of the way, because we don't need that in the way. So I've pinned that, and then I'm going to pull the lining fabric down over. There we are. So let's just make sure that, because it's pulling its way there, pivot that round. I've got my finger on there, and what we can do now is just carry on. So I'm holding my finger down so it traps the top of the pocket, and then I'm just carrying on down this seam here. So use your fingers, make sure you're holding that firmly down. We've got pins, but sometimes they might move just a little bit, and all the way down here, and that should line up at the bottom with about 1/4 inch from that bottom edge. Okay, so now we've got this bottom of the lining. So we'll just, usually this is where we leave a gap, but let's just line that up. Pop some pins in there if you want to, but I'm just going to stitch, and you can see how unusual it's all puckered here, but it is that zip pocket which has the diagonal sides, which is giving us that puckering. But believe you me, it's all going to be fine in a minute. So you need to pull that for it to come across and line up, because of that pocket, which is not exactly the same width as your bag all the way across. Okay, so we have that now. So we now have cut out corners. Think you'd need an extra couple of hands? No, you'll be fine. You'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so I'm putting my finger into that hole just to open it out, and then pull it so that it makes like a little mouth, like so. Flatten it down so that those seams come together, and press one seam in one direction and one in the other. Always a good idea at this point, I do it to put a pin in that seam, and then we're going to stitch across that short edge. So I'll turn it this way, whatever way is the easiest. So we always reverse at the beginning and the end of this seam. So straight across and reverse. Then we're going to do the same here. Open it out, finger in there, pull it into those diagonals, and you see that you can then just flatten it. So again, and one thing I like, that's going that way. So because the other side, the seam is going that way, I like that seam to go that way as well. So there's no twist in the bottom. So again, we will pop a pin in there, and whichever way is easier, one way or the other. So begin and reverse, begin and reverse, and cut. So there we have that cut. And then we've got the lining ones. Now these are a little bit more, well, they're not tricky, but because we've only got that 1/4 inch seam allowance there, we just need to put our finger into the gap again and line those seams up. And I'm going to put a pin there. And depending on how much, whether you have got a 1/4 inch there or not, just hold it the easiest way, and we'll just stitch across that bottom there. And I would say try not to stitch into your pocket base, but I don't believe it will do any harm if you did. You can see how this wiggles, and it's all, and that is that pocket. So again, straight into that hole, pull that across, one going one way and one going the other. It's really quite straightforward, don't you think? You might be thinking, oh, but if you just take it step by step, I think it's easier to turn that over that way. That's it, take it step by step. The more of these box bottoms that you do, the easier it will all become. Okay, so if you would like, you can just trim those little bits off. I'm hoping that by using this navy thread, it helps you to see the stitching a little bit more. So it's a good idea when you've got a light lining to make sure all your little bits of threads are trimmed off, like that little bit there. Okay, so now with this sewn completely, all the way up the side, all the way here, and look at all this bundly here, looks wrong, but this is where we're going to go through. So let's go into that hole, and we'll go into this one first. Go into this hole and push one of the corners of the outer through that hole. It's really nice. I don't think, or once before in my life, have I made a bag that opens through anything other than the side or the bottom seam. But this is really, really clever. As I say, I did learn a long time ago, but it just hasn't sprung to mind. So just keep pulling little by little. You'll get the flap, or there's a tab just coming through. Just give it a little pull. Here comes the flap, I think. Yep. There's our flap, so that's come out. And then, let's see, we'll pull it all the way through, and then we'll probably tuck it back in. The thing is, it's one of those things that you don't know what to expect is going to come next. So that's it, pull it through. So there's our pocket. Okay, so there is our pocket. So what we don't need to pull that anymore, but what I'm going to do is go through this hole again to be able to poke the corners out at the bottom. So just poke my fingers in here because we want to make sure they're all caught. Okay, so that one's neat enough. Let's switch to the other side and just put our fingers in there. The last thing we want to do is do the finishing top stitching and then find there's a hole in this seam. Okay, so looking so much better now, isn't it? And then when we go this way, there we can see that we have our zipped pocket within our bag, and there is our flap. So before we do this, we also need, don't forget this one, we have our magnetic clasp here, but we need one here. So let us just, if we just pull that out, so that's even there, because we want to pull this flap over as if we're closing it. Okay, so I can see that closes. So keep that nice and straight. It's hard to see because the fabric is it's got lots of design on it that you can't really see one bit from the other. But if I lift that up. So what we're trying to find now is where we need to put our other part of the magnetic clasp. So where this little bit juts out, I just lift that up and then I put my pin where that touches. And just to be even, if I can find it, so rather than the pin, let's just put a little black mark just there, because this is where, oh, I've lost it now. No, there it is. That is where the other part of the magnetic clasp is going. So again, hand into the opening, and we want to come all the way around. No, let's go hand into the outside. So perhaps it's easier there. Ugh. Let's put it around here, because I'm just putting my hand in here so that I can get purely, so I'm holding all that inside, so this is just the layer of outer. There it is. So there's my little dot. So I'm going in with my seam ripper. I could measure it, but I know, there we are. And I'm just making a little incision there. This is for the prongs to go through. So either side of that dot, and then I can take my innie rather, and let's see if I put those there. Okay, just press that through. Oh, there we are. Press that through. Probably not gone through. Oh, there it is yet. And then I've still got my fingers on both sides. There they are. Can you see those prongs sticking out there? Okay. Now where have I put my, oh, there it is. So I've got, because I've got wadding that we're going through, I won't put any stabilizer there. There are the prongs. So I'm putting my better washer on the top, folding those back like so. How are we doing? Oh, 10 to 8, very good. So I've folded those back, and now I can just let this all relax again. It's all screwed up, but we're going to do a little bit of pressing. Okay, so let's just check that that does up nicely, and I think it does, that does up nicely. Okay, so open that out. So now, remember when we pressed, that looks just as good as when we pressed it earlier. And then here on the back, we press that, and it's just automatically gone into place just like that, without fiddling about and having a slightly curved bit where we've tucked a raw edge in. But it just looks perfect. You wouldn't know, wouldn't be able to see where we've actually joined that. So I am just going to go in there. I'm pushing the lining back down in there. I just want to press around this top edge. So I want to push the lining here to the inside. So let's just move this round and just bring this ironing board in here. Slip that over, and then let's see, I'm just going to bring the iron here. That was very nice, but we'll just press it again just at the sides there, just to make that nice and neat. And then it's this other side where the flap under here, I just want to make sure, because this will be the front of the bag here, if we just press this along this top edge before we top stitch. So that's pressing that along there, and in there, and into these little bits which are going to fold as well. It's a little bit hard to show you here, but just pop that in. That's it, that's done that nicely. And in here, so is this little bit here, near our D-ring tab. Just give that one there, and also just, that's going out of shot there. Whoops, turn that down. That's all right. I'll just finger press that along there as well. So next little bit, whoops, next little bit at the machine. So what we're going to do now, because I pressed, can you see how that meets there so nicely? I'm just going to pop a pin or two here just to hold that together, and that pressing that I said about earlier is very important because that's what gives the good finish. So I press just around where the seams are, and then I'm just going to stitch all the way around the top. Now let's see. I'm just thinking whether I stitch along that inside edge. If you've got a free arm machine, if you can take your if you can take your extension table off and you've got a free arm, it will be a lot easier to do it like that. But I am going to stitch from the inside, so I'm going to start just here, and let's just come in a little bit closer so that you can perhaps see. Just, ooh, perhaps that's a little bit too close. I'll try and push this out of the way so that you can see. So I'll do it about 2.5, and I'm just going to stitch along here up to where, and I can see I am stitching a dark thread onto a cream lining, so I can already see that I haven't done particularly well there, but now that I've got there, I'm just going to pull this around so that I can, and you want to tuck that zip part down so that we get a nice top edge around here. Tuck the D-ring out of the way, and I'm going quite close to the top here, and you just need to keep pushing the fabric, flattening it down, but if you pressed it, it's going to make it nice and easy. I've got a nice straight run with this top bit here. Oops, that way. Straight run here, so again, just pull that down and carry on stitching along this edge. The lining is on the inside, so you won't be able to see it on the outside. But it's a little bit different way. Usually our bags are quite open at the top, and it makes it very easy. Oh, I missed that bit. All right, let's have a look here. So I'm coming around this bit where the zip is again, so just flatten that down. This is why if you can get that 1/2 inch at the top between your pocket and the, here we are. Now I have missed, so I didn't hold that up very well. So let me just pop this in here. So there we go. I'm just putting a pin back in there because when I came around there, I let it slip. So the more pinning, the better. So I'm just going to go across my stitching again, the stitching that I did before, and I just pulled that up so that this time I am going to catch. I should probably do this stitching again, pull it out, and that's it, got it there, very close to the edge, but that's caught all of that down, and had I pinned it a little bit better, it would have worked first time like the other one did. But just making sure that they are nice and neatly with that pressing, and then making sure they're neatly together. Nearly done. nearly. But we just need, right, so now we can close up our bag, like so. And then what we're going to do is, where these D-rings are, we can just push that in, like so. And we don't want to get that in the way. But so around where the zip is, and if you've got binding clips, just, hang on, let's just tuck that in like that. Just put a binding clip on the top there, and here. I did have, where have they all gone? And there's another one. Under the machine. 1, 2, 3. So then another one here, because we're just going to do a little bit of top stitching down there. So here as well. There it is. So we can put that one there. And then I'll start stitching here. So it just, there's our little tab. So all we need to do is press that together, and then I'm just going to stitch 1/4 inch in for about 2 inches down this side, and it just keeps the shape of the bag. So let's just start there. So I'm going to reverse at the top and then stitch down, as I say, for about 2 inches. So I've done that one there. Just clip that bit of thread off there, and then on the next one, push the rest of the fabric and the tab back, take the clip off and start again here, reverse at the top, 2 inches down and reverse. There's another one, clip that, and then we'll go around to this one here, take that tab off and just flatten that down, and 1/4 inch in, 2 inches down, and clip that bit of thread there, and then the last one here, tuck that out of the way and the tab, just so that we've got that side there, line it up at the top so that's nice and straight. And it should be even on both sides. 2 inches down and stop. And then we can clip. There are some other little bits where we cut the thread just there, and there must be just there. Clip that off and clip that little bit off. And must be that side there. And just get rid of those bits and our tab. Right, so it's the last little bit apart from attaching our bag handles. What's Michelle's style? Bag handles. So with our clasp on that side, and because it swivels, doesn't really matter which way you pop them on. But there it is. There it is. Let's just open that out. Whoops. There's our zipped pocket. And with our 2 compartments, just done like that. So, there we go. We are 2 minutes before 8 o'clock. How good. I am dead on time, aren't I? So, I probably didn't get that quite centrally, which is a little bit naughty. But it's a nice little bag. Thank you, Jan. Yes, welcome, Jan. Jan's first So with Trisha bag making. So lovely to have you here. But incredible, she says. It does work. It does work. So it's quite a decent size. Gosh, my voice is going now. Oh dear. There they are. It's about 10.5. You can see the bag flap slightly different on one to the other. Oh, thank you, Margaret. You'd be happy making a... Oh, good. Good. Well, you will have it. Thank you, Marion and Anne and Tony. So another one, just a little bit different. This is me, isn't it? I like to do something different every time. We can't be doing the same all the time. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Hayes. Yeah, give it a go. The the PDF is in the group, so hopefully, cannot find my advent box. It's not there yet, Jane, I'm afraid. That was our lovely Anne sending a message from above saying, I'll have a Christmas box. I'm going to get them on tomorrow morning because I need to get a nice picture. I shan't have them all made up, but I'll have a nice picture of the box so that you can see on the website what it is. But I will have it on as soon as I've done it. Give me a chance. I've got to get to school. I've got to say, not sure. John went for a job interview. I found out yesterday. He got it. He got the job. Oh. Oh dear. Oh dear. I hope I'm going to have a voice tomorrow. What is going on? I am sorry, ladies, but at least I've made the bags before my voice goes completely. Congratulations, John. Really, really pleased with that. So, enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm not going to say any more. Too much talking. Oh, I need a drink, don't I? I need brandy. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you on Thursday when I show you the advent box in a little bit more detail. So take care of yourselves. I will have a voice by then. Bye for now. Oh my goodness.